Hi, and welcome back to DDA on F1, where today's choice of topic is the 2020 Hungarian Grand Prix. Before we get into that, please remember to stick around to the end of the video where we talk about your favorite passes of all time. In my previous video, I asked you guys to comment down below what your favorite F1 pass of all time was, and a lot of you guys responded, and I really appreciate that. So at the end of this video, we'll go over that and see what my favorite answer was. As always, please consider subscribing, liking, and commenting on your thoughts about the 2020 Hungarian Grand Prix down below. I read all of your comments, and I look forward to hearing your perspectives on what was an awesome race. So let's get started. Congratulations to Lewis Hamilton and the Mercedes AMG Formula 1 team for winning the 2020 Hungarian Grand Prix. If you didn't watch it, sorry for spoiling it for you, unfortunately, but it was an amazing race. And today I get to discuss some of the things that stood out to me throughout not just the race, but that weekend. My point number one for this analysis, if you will, is just how big of an impact weather has on strategic calls in Formula One races. The wet conditions, the race started under wet conditions, and the promise of further rain really dictated the different teams' strategies, and they were all sitting out there waiting for the rain to come, sometimes in disadvantageous positions. Max and Charles especially, were left out there hoping for a change in conditions and trying to anticipate that, but the rain never came. And for Charles, it was even harder because they put him on softs, which all weekend, in all the support races, which I actually watched, the soft tire just degraded so quickly that it was useless after 5-10 laps. And I understand Ferrari's strategic call there. They went for the fastest slick tire, thinking that the rain was going to come anyway. The degradation was very, very high at this track, and so drivers saw that their medium tires were going out quicker, their softs were going off quicker, even the hards were going off quicker. Max almost suffered a repeat of last year and had a Mercedes hounding him down to the final lap. Luckily for him, this time they succeeded in holding their position, but the rain really was the dictating factor in every decision made in that race, and it just goes to show how big of a throw of the dice the weather really can become. Point number two, and how could I not talk about this? I don't think I've ever seen anything like that before on an F1 race, certainly during the formation lap, but never on a reconnaissance lap. I think Christian Horner mentioned in a post-race interview that Max had actually gone off several times on that reconnaissance lap. I don't know if you guys were watching the pre-race show, but before the incident where Max crashed into the wall actually occurred, they showed a slow motion of Max going through turns 6 and 7, a right-left S. And you can tell that once he hit turn 7, that left part of the S, the car was already starting to slide and spin on him. So I think that's one of the instances that Mr. Horner was referring to. Absolutely not the way you want to start a Grand Prix. Max was out there doing his reconnaissance lap, trying to find the grip and where it was, especially on a wet track and a damp track like this instance. He had to go and figure out what was going on, and he saw what to do and what not to do. Absolutely phenomenal job by the Red Bull mechanics and the Red Bull team in general in not only nursing that car on the grid with something like 18 minutes to go, rebuilding the front left suspension, putting a new nose cone, putting a new front wing, and getting the car dialed in for the race. Who knows the amount of parts that then go amiss or start malfunctioning due to an impact of any kind in an F1 car. So great job to them. Also fantastic pit stops by the Red Bull team as always. So hats off to them. Point number three, I don't know how many of you guys follow Nico Rosberg, the 2016 Formula One world champion, but more importantly, YouTuber on YouTube, but he made a video at last year's Hungarian Grand Prix about what he thinks makes Max so quick. One thing that Nico underlined was Max's unyielding and relentless trust and confidence in himself and his abilities. Max seems to have a way to pick himself up and perform in spite of anything that happens around him. And today we saw an excellent example of that. We saw Max absolutely binning it into a corner on a reconnaissance lap, getting the car back together, taking it to the start-finish line, getting the mechanics to work on it, not knowing if he's even going to start the race. Think of the impact that that has on your confidence in the car, on your confidence to find grip once the race starts, and on in your confidence and your focus to get dialed in for the start of a race. Then Max proceeds to start the race and pass 6 cars, something like 6 cars or 5 cars going into the first turn. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, it's crazy. I mean, imagine any other driver. For example, Charles Leclerc, who is famously very tough on himself on the radio. Imagine the shaking of his confidence before a race. But Max seems to be immune to that, and that's really what makes the difference with Max. You couldn't tell that Max had just caused damage to his car all on his own, by himself, 100% his fault. Yeah, I'm sure he was worried, but his body language didn't betray him. He looked focused and ready to get back into the car and go and deliver, and that's what Max did. Point number 4. Can we talk about Lance Stroll for a second? I admit, I am one of those people that seem to not have a huge appreciation for Mr. Stroll. Why? Because I'm jealous. Why, do you ask? Do I have a father that can then purchase a Formula One team and then guarantee me a seat for as long as I want? I mean, come on. Do I? Do I? Do you? I mean, I guess it's our collective financial affliction that really makes it hard for me to appreciate the method with which Mr. Stroll arrived to Formula One. However, my misgivings for that are true or valid or whatever, you can't knock the guy on merit. The dude is quick, and he proved again just how solid he could be, running a very lonely race, but finishing in P4. And Checo had a weird weekend, suffering from a physical ailment, feeling dizzy, which is never something you ever want to feel in a Formula One car. But he did a good job to recover to the position that he finished in. And I mean, Racing Point, I mean, I had to. I'm sorry. The pink Mercedes, got you again. The Pepto-Bismol wave, as I call it in my house. I really think that the only thing that can derail the progress that Racing Point has made in Formula One for the 2020 season is the verdict of any impending investigations that they have against them, as Renault has filed another complaint on the validity and the legitimacy of their car. If you're unfamiliar with what I'm talking about, I'll link a video up here for you guys to see that will explain the situation with Racing Point, whatever you want to call them, a little bit better. And finally, point number 5. I found it very interesting listening to Toto Wolff's comments on the effect that the 2019 Ferrari power unit had on the Mercedes AMG Formula One team. If you don't know what I'm referring to, the 2019 season saw Ferrari using a power unit that gave them vast superiority in a straight line. There were times when the Mercedes drivers were using DRS and they still couldn't get past the Ferrari just using their push to pass button, their KERS button. And so this caused a knee-jerk reaction from Mercedes. Not realizing that the Ferrari power unit was going to be deemed illegal, they went back to the factory and back to the drawing board, already having 6 world championships. They went back to the drawing board and continued developing their power unit and every bit of their car to be better and faster. Even though Mercedes won the Formula One World Championship, the Drivers' Championship, and the Constructors by a long way, they still felt the need to continue to innovate. And as I mentioned before in a previous video, to see that kind of reaction from a team that's so clearly dominating the sport is why they're so good. And the effect that the Ferrari power unit, which was later deemed illegal, had on Mercedes was that they made so much progress on their car, and we're seeing that progress this season. I mean, they're in a different race than most of the other cars, barring the rare exception when they get penalized, sometimes unfairly, and when they have drivers like Max Verstappen outperforming anything the car could possibly provide. But normally, Mercedes is just going to walk the field this year, and it's thanks to Ferrari, of all people. Isn't that crazy? So after reading the comments from my previous video, if you haven't seen that, I'll link it up here. I asked you guys, the subscribers and ladies, to comment on what your favorite pass of all time was in F1. I think the best pass that I saw that you guys mentioned upon reflection of not just the pass, but the location of the pass and the opposition was this comment on the mighty pass of Mr. Mark Webber on Fernando Alonso just as they got past Eau Rouge into Radillon. A lot of people don't really know that whole section isn't called Eau Rouge. It's called Eau Rouge at the bottom, where it crosses a small river that has red water, which translates to Eau Rouge in French. And then Radillon is the right-left section going up. Oh yeah, that's an amazing pass. If you don't think that pass is an awesome pass, as Mr. Bernard says, but yeah, that pass was something else. A lot of testicular fortitude to make that happen. So congratulations to Alex Eisman. You get a massive thumbs up from me because right now I'm too poor to do gifts. So yeah, thank you, Mr. Eisman. Great stuff, everyone. Thank you so much for participating. I think I'm gonna do more of those little challenges for you guys. I love hearing your opinions and your thoughts on the things that I'm talking about. So keep it up. British Grand Prix preview. Silverstone is definitely one of the highlights left in this shortened F1 season. Hopefully we're gonna have many more races, but aside from probably Spa-Francorchamps, Silverstone is a high-speed, flowing track with plenty of lengthy DRS zones that'll get you past the opposition. Silverstone has offered some of the best wheel-to-wheel action we've ever seen in Formula One. Don't know what I'm talking about? Do yourself a favor. Look up an onboard or some kind of historic footage of Silverstone where you get to see the cars go through turns 9, 10, 11, 12, and 13. It's formerly called Copse, which is the right-hander, into Maggots, which is left, right, then Beckett's, which is another left, right, and then Chapel, which is a left that leads onto the Hangar Straight. It is absolutely the best representation of the physics-defying capabilities of what F1 cars can really, really do. And I hope you guys enjoy that. With that said, my name is DDA, and I hope you enjoyed today's video. And on that bombshell, it's time to end. Thank you very much for watching. Good night!